Hello guys, we got something very important to talk about. The potential that Final Fantasy 9 Remake that could potentially get revealed in 2 days. There's things floating around that we need to keep our eyes out for something 9-ish on the 7th. I'm recording this on the 5th. Is it going to be the 9 Remake? I mean, Square Enix have been posting like new artwork. They've been tweeting about 9 a tremendous amount. Obviously it's its birthday. They even released like a little comic thing in Japan which went into the origins of Vivi's name. So there's just been murmurings and bubblings. And all I'm going to say is, Square, if you have no intention of doing a 9 remake when you know that it's been on the last thing on the Nvidia rumor list, most of which has all come true, if not all. Most, all, not sure. Basically they know that fans are suspecting a 9 remake, and if you've been posting all of this and there is no plan for one, we are right back to what year was it when they did that 7 remake demo for the PS3. We're back there where fans want something and you just fuck with them, and it caused so much outrage. Are we there again, or are we getting the 9 remake? But let's just say we are. What are the chances that 9 remake is going to be an AI slop? An AI mess that is going to become the catalyst for a new wave of AI outrage? What are you talking about, Pez? Why are you suspecting that? Well, being that I've been sort of out of the loop for about a year keeping up with Square Enix news, the other day I popped on to check out Square Enix's share price. And I got to say, I've been pretty accurate when I've been looking into Square's share price historically, and sort of where the company is, where the structuring is, that I've been able to make calls about certain things coming out. I mean, the biggest one was 16. Like, you could just see in their financials, oh shit, there is a space here for a AAA project. Oh, this division is free. We're probably going to get 16. And then I think it was like 4 or 5 months later, it actually came. So I wanted to go and sort of look, is there room for a 9 remake? Is there room for 17? Where the fuck is Gauge 4? Like, where is it at? And I've got to say, I expected to go and see Square Enix continuing to plummet into the ground, because 2024 was rough, man. They experienced, what was it, like $100 and something million loss. They had the biggest drop off in their share price in the company's history. Like, it cratered through the ground, and it was nothing but doom and gloom. Square Enix are toast. And since then, to my knowledge, there's not been much coming out. I mean, there's nothing coming out. Where are all the games? Where's all the announcements? And it's not uncommon for Square Enix to go through quiet periods like this. But typically what they'll do is they'll announce a game that's nowhere near ready yet, just to basically float the books. I mean, that's essentially what 15 was, to be honest. And like, look how early we got 7 Remake announced. That's all just so that they can go to their shareholders and say, look, have confidence in us. This thing is coming. It's the old please be excited from Square Enix. And we just haven't had that. I knew that sales would absolutely be down, even though we have had, obviously ports of 7 Remake and 16 going to PC and Xbox, and of course legacy sales coming and slowly filtering in from those games, like, would hold sales up a little bit, but not enough. And lo and behold, yeah, sales are indeed down something around, I haven't got it right in front of me, but it was around 20 to 25%, which is significant. So then I pop on Square Enix's share price, expecting to see a low, and instead it has gone through the goddamn roof. Square Enix's share price right now, I can't articulate how significant this is. When I first looked at it, it just matched where it was back in the 2000s, like early 2000s, Final Fantasy X era, which was arguably Square Enix's peak. We just had the golden era, 7, 8, 9, and then 10 hit. Square Enix were riding their highest of highs from a company that a decade before that was almost ready to fold. And of course that rise turned Squaresoft into Square Enix, the Enix merger. That also pushed this price right up. And we've been living in the shadow of that era for nigh on 2 decades, near 25 years, until today. in which the share price has now officially gone past the point of the golden era. What is fueling that? So I got my little Peasant detective hat on and I went investigating. And what I've dug up has left me in a weird place, guys. I feel somewhat hopeful, but also absolutely petrified. I feel like we could get more games than ever, but at the same time, we may never actually see decent, solid games from this company ever again. And even the ones we do see might be bastardized AI slop with NFTs and microtrans and soulless cash grab elements being the primary focus of them. And would they do something like that to FF9? Of course, we had Final Fantasy 15 sell itself out to that absolutely rapacious, yes, I'm talking about 15, A New Empire, I will never shut up about it. Square Enix sold the skin of FF15 to essentially a criminal gambling money shark that, you know, the CEO of quite literally stood on stage and said he doesn't give a shit about games. In fact, he thinks it's hilarious, this idea of game companies making innovative, creative games. Like, what idiots. Or what they don't know is you just create an addictive, manipulative, like algorithmic formula. You do a mass advertising campaign and you hook in a bunch of whales, and by whales they mean players who get themselves in the horrible situation of flushing all their life savings and in some cases literally committing suicide over it. We had that in the history, and ever since then I've been goddamn skeptical and suspicious of what Square Enix might do, especially with the ushering in of Takashi Kiryu. So of course he replaced our last CEO Matsuda. Matsuda was obviously the let's westernize Final Fantasy and Square Enix as a whole, let's appeal to the West. That was his whole shtick. Takashi Kiryu, however, he previously worked as an investment firm manager for a company called Dentsu Group Incorporated. Simply known as Dentsu, is a Japanese international advertising and public relationships joint stock company headquartered in Tokyo, and Dentsu is the largest advertising agency in Japan and 5th largest advertising agency network in the world, especially in terms of revenue. So Takashi Kiryu was a significant player in this company. And you know, before I go into the doom and gloom, let's just focus on that for a sec. Having our current CEO of Square Enix being a guy who worked for one of the world's most profitable advertisement investment companies in the world, just on face value, I think we can all get a sniff of what that's going to bring to Square Enix. The potential for someone who is very focused on investment strategy and restructuring the company in a way that appeals to shareholders and the company's liquidity, and really opening up the barn doors of the company's internal fiscal policies, I suppose. And that can be a good thing, you know. At the end of the day, it's not free to create video games. The reason we've often had like stagnant years of no games, no Final Fantasies, or even why we've had such like horrifying times since Final Fantasy and KH fans has often been to poor structuring, poor handling of finances, business decisions as a whole. And if you know, this guy has now come in, I'm not going to say like Takashi Kiryu is the entire reason why the share price has gone through the roof, but it is a correlation. And you know, so it does make me think, well, if we get this much money, that absolutely could lead to more games. But what kind of games? Well, let's dive a bit deeper into some of the other reasons Square's share price is so high. So I did see that they did a stock split. Now this is essentially just where you either half, or in Square Enix's case, they're actually planning to do a 1-to-3 stock split, which essentially means, let's say you have $300 worth of stock, and with that you own 100 shares. That will just go up to then you own 300 shares. It essentially just changes the share to price ratio. It doesn't actually change the value of the company or the value of the shares, like overall, or say the internal revenue or the value of the company. It's more just a way to bring down what the buy-in price of the stock is, because sometimes a company's stock can get so high that each per share price is a bit too high, and it makes it somewhat difficult for new investors, even small level investors, to get involved. And by doing a stock split, you basically open it up to a broader range of investors, so to speak. So a stock split within itself, nothing like too nefarious going on there. But because I did interpret it nefarious when I first heard it, because my brain thought, and I had to do some research, that a stock split was the same as a stock buyback. Now, a stock buyback or stock repurchase is essentially where a company buys a whole load of its own stock as a way to somewhat artificially, not entirely, depending on the manner of the stock repurchase, boost the value. Now, this does change the internal value, and some companies have done this in a very sneaky and insincere way. I think Apple's done it, Tesla's done it. In fact, there's a lot of companies that have done it on steroids. And what it essentially does is it inflates the value of the company more than what its actual productivity output. Like the valuation of a ton of huge companies right now is significantly higher than its actual either manufacturing or delivery output. What does this company actually produce? Tesla is a great example because Tesla is one of the most valuable car companies in the world right now, and yet it produces the least amount of actual cars out of pretty much all of them. And it does somewhat create a bit of a bubble. What it also does is it hands a lot of the company's revenue just straight over to shareholders. Because it does, it boosts the value for shareholders of their shares. And some shareholders actually don't like it, though most of them do, because it can cause a lot of problems for a company. Some say it's just a waste of money that actually jeopardizes the long-term future of the company. And a lot of investors, some are here for like a quick buck, and those are the ones that will love a stock buyback. Other investors, they're in it for the long haul, and they want to see the longevity kind of profits and return of the company. Like they actually, and those are the shareholders you want, right? You don't want the pump and dumpers. You want the ones who genuinely believe in the company and are holding their position because of that fact. Just reading some notes that I made on it. Stock buybacks are surprisingly controversial among investors. Some see them as a waste of money, while others regard them as an excellent way to generate tax-advantaged returns for stockholders. But here's the upshot. Properly executed stock repurchases are one of the best and lowest risk ways to create value for shareholders. Not for the games, not for shareholders. However, buybacks can starve the business of money needed in other areas, such as research, and in case of Square Enix, development and investment into new games. Over time, this practice can erode the competitive position of the business and in the long term, weaken it. All right, but like you said, Pez, they've done a stock split, not a stock buyback. Well, actually, Square Enix did just try to do a stock buyback. I think this was a story about 3 weeks ago. Square Enix basically announced they were going to do 5 million share stock repurchase of their own shares. However, it didn't go ahead. And the reason for it is apparently they just missed the window of when they could do the repurchase, because basically a company has a certain window in which to do it. Otherwise, you start getting into hot water with things like insider trading. Now, I don't think Square Enix missed this stock repurchase window accidentally. I think it was intentional. And there's a lot to substantiate that this was, and especially Takashi Kiryu, because he's a savvy investment motherfucker. Like, I was just going to say, everyone who thought this guy was like a video game fan, I knew the moment he stood on stage. And yes, when he first came out, he did the whole, I like video games. I played video games as a kid. And I remember the chat just getting filled with, yay, we've got an actual game fan running Square Enix. And I was looking at it like, what? You ain't buying this, are you? Like, this guy, this guy don't give a shit about video games. Like, maybe he does, but it's certainly not his first and foremost priority, and it's not why Square Enix have employed this guy. Again, he came from Dentsu. That's his career background. This mofo know how to make money. He know how to play the game. And this like fake stock repurchase was a part of the game. Going out and announcing the repurchase, then intentionally missing it. Because it gets shareholders titillated. They start pumping in when they hear, it makes them very bullish to hear about stock repurchase. And we actually have a previous story of this just happening. So there are, well, 3 very large shareholders of Square Enix. One of them is the co-founder of the entire company. Yasuhiro Fukushima, he holds 20% of Square Enix. Pretty significant. The second one is 3D Investment Partners, who now hold 10%. We're going to get onto those buggers in a minute. And another one was Dentsu. And what we saw in a very, very buried, not easy to find report is that Dentsu and 3D Investments, they're both what's called activist investors, and they're ones who invest a significant amount of capital, enough to try to push the company and its business model into certain direction, actually determine like the decisions that the company makes. And it can get real icky when you're in bed with these, depending on who they are, which kind of an activist investor, on the method and the relationship that happens, because some of them can be exceptionally aggressive and even try to strong arm the company. And Dentsu attempted to strong arm a stock buyback. It basically proposed and told Square Enix that they should buy 60 billion yen of its own share. So Dentsu bought a load of share and was like, yeah, now do a stock buyback and basically hand fat stacks of cash to us. And what Square Enix did then, I think what Kiryu did, was essentially this kind of jiu-jitsu where it's like, yeah, we'll consider it, we'll be in talks, give all the gab. I'm just imagining Kiryu going over to Singapore and Tokyo, going to these big investors and giving them all the gab, giving them all the promises. Yeah, we'll do this, maybe we'll do that later. And basically made them think that this buyback was happening. And then right towards the end, turned around and said, actually, guys, it's a bit too aggressive. It's a bit too aggressive. So we're going to hold off for now. And it's pretty fucking smart, really. Like, basically playing the game. Square Enix are playing the game. And Kiryu is. And while that does kind of fill me with some hope, because we do have to be honest with ourselves, Square Enix has got lost in the weeds, company-wise. While I love that they give so much dictation and control to the directors, like how much, say, Yoshida and Nomura, Tabata on the left side, Tabata did have his hands tied behind his back. But Kitase, Square Enix have given directors a tremendous amount of control over games, their release, their windows, their style, the time frames, the lot. And while creative control is fantastic, it does also come with the risk of getting lost in the weeds. Nomura has had us lost in the weeds. The previous director, 14, before Yoshida had to jump on and salvage the whole thing, also got the project lost in the weeds. And believe me, this is not Nomura hate. I'm a big defender of Nomura. It's just there's a difference between a director and a creative director. I don't know why people hate me when I make this statement. This is not Nomura's strength to be an out-and-out director. It's creative. People kick off at me about that, yet Nomura himself has said that. He himself has admitted and said, yeah, I'm better as a creative director. And, I do believe that is one of the core reasons, if we're honest, why Square Enix and the games, have kind of derailed a little bit. And so to have someone like Kiryu, he could be the very remedy for this sort of lost, wandering sort of ship in the mist, as a course correct. Potentially, or he could be the absolute worst thing, because while I may speculate that he's doing this kind of clever jiu-jitsu with these big activist investors, it doesn't change the fact he's getting in bed with some wolves. And this is where we now go to 3D Investments. Now, they held about a 7 to 8% share value of Square, and just a few weeks ago they increased it to 10.01%. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but it actually kind of is, especially when Square Enix's share price is now higher than it was in 2000. That's a lot of money. Now, 3D Investments Partners PTE, they're a Singaporean investment company that have become somewhat infamous in Japan. They've done big investments with corporations like Toshiba, Fujisoft, Sapporo Holdings, and various other massive, behemoth companies. But their reputation as an activist investor is somewhat infamous. According to Bloomberg, this investor has consistently shown an aggressive attitude towards its Japanese investees, making demands for large-scale business reforms, including requests for executive resignations, placements of external directors, basically getting outsiders and sticking them in the seat, and publicly criticising poor management decisions. Now, the context also here is that 3D Investments has never invested or been involved in a video game company ever. It's never been in their portfolio. So they have no clue when it comes to video games. And so again, because this is all speculation, this could be a thing where they're dipping their toes into something, and Square Enix are getting a massive backing from a company with a tremendous amount of equity. Like, this could be Takashi Kiryu, 5D chess genius, or it could be inviting the wolves in with the sheep, who will try to make decisions, future decisions, strong-arm Square into directions and replace even some of its board with people who know nothing about video games. And so it could absolutely destroy Square Enix's capacity to operate as a video game. Like, it could swing either way, because the thing with video games is, out of all kind of investments or big companies, video games are by nature volatile and uncertain. Like, it's actually one of the most volatile, if we're honest, because it's a creative product. And while we think we know a formula that will work and be like a guaranteed moneymaker, like 7 Remake, guaranteed moneymaker, but we saw actually it hasn't quite hit the sales. Final Fantasy 16, when that was getting developed, it was being conceptualized off of Devil May Cry, and they even went and got the Devil May Cry fucking combat director at a time where DMC was riding a hype train. But by the time 16 came out, that kind of died off. And even outside of Square Enix, look at how many projects have lost hundreds of millions. Fucking plane is well loud. Shut up! Shut up! Hemorrhaged money out the butthole. I'm sure when they developed it, they thought it was going to be a surefire success. That is the risky nature of video games, and how a company like 3D Investments will operate with that, kind of hard to say. It's also a little bit sketchy to me that they're also a Singaporean company. Now, the reason why I say that, Singapore is a fantastic country that is always kind of on the breaking edge of technology, but I know Singapore is massive because its government became very pro-crypto and metaverse, and so too actually Japan sort of started following suit as well, but actually integrating crypto into its economy, main treasury operation. So very, very pro-crypto and metaverse, but also things like NFTs, non-fungible tokens. And when we've got Takashi Kiryu, who has also previously worked in all of those areas, including NFTs, and is around when Takashi Kiryu was coming, we started getting, I noticed they've gone quiet, Square Enix, on that whole NFT, what was it called? Symbiogenesis. Everyone thought it was going to be Parasite Eve remake. It ended up being a NFT project that's now kind of gone under the radar. It all makes me think that things like NFTs and AI, that the Singaporeans and a company like this be interested in, breaking edge technologies, they call it. This is how Kiryu has got shareholders so excited on two main things: kicking the can down the road on massive stock buybacks, as well as promising we're going to incorporate these new technologies. And that's not speculation. In fact, when questioned about AI, in his letter, Kiryu wrote, and this was just after the release of ChatGPT, he put, "The applicability of generative AI is by no means limited to text, and the subsequent months saw a quick succession of launches of new services and content that expanded generative AI into a variety of domains with close ties to digital entertainment, including images, video, and music. I believe that generative AI has the potential not only to reshape what we create, but also fundamentally change the process by which we create, including programming and game development." And this is why this video is titled, "Is the 9 Remake, it could potentially be shown in 2 days or whenever it does come, could it be an AI shitfest?" Just something tells me the way that 9 is stylized and the way that Takashi Kiryu has said that he's going to completely restructure how Square Enix create games. And just bear this in mind, that this is why we've gone through such a quiet period, because Takashi Kiryu also came straight in and heavily criticized Square Enix's operations up to date, mentioning that he plans to slim down the lineups. Now, when I heard that, I fucking wept. Like, slim down the lineups? The other way, my friend. We need to be getting more consistent releases of AAAs, or at least every year or two, like a big AAA, but with then mid-range games supplementing the in-betweens. I personally feel like mid-range games really haven't been capitalized on enough. Like, mid-range games aren't supposed to be the money makers in and of themselves. They're supposed to be the supplementary force that keeps people in the franchise and interested in the company. And honestly, Square Enix has tremendously lacked in this department. What he specifically said was, when he was asked, are the development efforts made more difficult because Square Enix covers so many bases, which I don't know. Do they really cover so many bases? Anyway, Kiryu said it has less to do with our development function and more to do with the numerous entries in our lineup. I want to structure our development function so that we are able to ensure higher quality from each title by slimming down the lineup. The interviewer then asked back, why have you been unable to slim the lineup until now? Kiryu says, as our customers' needs and the types of devices available have diversified, we have tried to produce hits by developing a wide variety of titles rather than focusing only on certain ones. I believe that this has resulted in the splintering of our resource pool. Meanwhile, there have been clear winners and clear losers among the major titles released recently, and it has become possible for even indie titles to make their presence felt. The market is increasingly polarized between blockbusters and indies, but I feel that we have developed many titles that fell somewhere in the middle. I want to make clearer distinctions going forward. So that tells me he is as anti-mid-range game as you can get. I don't like that. I love the mid-range titles. That tells me that we're going to have a lot of mobile, indie, like NFT. Maybe that's where the generative AI will be mostly contained to. Experimental. Maybe that will be the space in which all of this future technology, as they call it, sort of gets played around with, and maybe not so much the AAA, but I feel somewhat dubious about it. But I'm just scared that 9 is in the firing line, because Kiryu also said that he intended, when coming on board, to be extremely aggressive in applying AI and other cutting-edge technologies to both the content development and the publishing functions. In the short term, our goal will be to enhance our development productivity and achieve greater sophistication in our marketing efforts. In the longer term, we hope to leverage these new technologies to create new forms of content for consumers, as we believe that technological innovation represents business opportunity. And even in Square Enix's letter, when they first announced that Matsuda was being replaced by Takashi Kiryu, its main reason was to move the company into the use of ever-evolving technologies. Fills me with dread. I was camping out with a couple of friends and I told them about all of this, and I was chewing their ear off. I said, I want to do a video to the community and kind of express whether or not I have like really bullish, optimistic outlooks. Like, we're gonna get Part 3 remake soon. 17's actually going to be pretty close on the heels. 9 remake. We're going to get KH4 finally come through the pipeline, and we're going to get a tremendous amount of games. And while I do think it's still possible, as I dove deeper, I just felt more and more trepidation that there's so much going on in Square Enix that is going to be really dictating a whole new management structure overhaul, that the actual games itself, the actual heart and soul, is going to get lost and quagmired in this massive new business enterprising direction. That Square Enix is essentially more being treated like an investment firm right now than it is an actual video game company that's here to touch the hearts of its audience. And I know that is naive and silly, really, because Square Enix is a company, and again, money does make the products, but when it's being achieved and the share price being this high, it's being built on, now 2 rounds of considerations for stock buybacks, when it's having a significant portion of its company's controls handing over to, oh yeah, I didn't even fully cover 3D investments, like their reputation. Santaku magazine quotes a company head as calling 3D's demands heart-wrenchingly extreme, and a securities firm executive called the fund the most dynamic and feared activist in Japan. So the most feared and aggressive activist investment company in Japan, Square Enix are now hand in hand with them. That seems pretty ominous, but it is also what has led to this insane share price jump. I feel like other people who are very savvy in this investment world, they see companies like this come on board and it gives them strong confidence. And I think this is what Kiryu has done, given confidence to the markets, because none of this share price is based on actual sales performance or anything in the pipeline. It is pure shareholder confidence in the company. And while this could be extremely good, there are some other examples of activist investors that basically make people say that activist investors, they're not there to really help their targets. They're of course there to make money, and if that means sticking a knife, even short term, or like bailing as soon as the ship looks like it's sinking, activist investors will do it. Right? A couple of examples from the past. There were active investors trying to make changes happen in Ubisoft when they weren't getting their way. They pushed plans to make a new joint venture with Tencent that seemed to take some control away from Guillemont's and Ubisoft's capacity to make new games. There was an investment relationship between Kodakawa and From Software, and it basically caused a whole load of rivalry because of Sony's investment in where like exclusives would get released, exclusives skipping the PlayStation. They gave an example of Switch 2's The Dusk Bloods, so it can create a lot of turbulence and infighting. I mean, shit. I don't know how separate still the Enix and the Square are, but imagine if the Square splinters off from the Enix. What if we go back to Squaresoft because of this? I know most of you are like, fuck yeah, bring it on. Final Fantasy hasn't been good since Final Fantasy X. But you get the point. It creates an exceptionally cutthroat business environment, and that's where Square Enix are right now. These changes don't really inspire a tremendous amount of confidence that we're going to see like real heartfelt quality from the company, but we also have to just point to, from where we were in 2024 and the outlook to where we are today. One of the biggest turnarounds, rise from the ashes, massive U-turns that I've seen. There were so many articles as well of people in 2024 who were selling their shares in Square Enix, it's time to get out, the company is donezo, there's no point in investing in this anymore. And now they're bringing out articles today saying, fuck, I sold all my Square Enix shareholdings, and they've just gone and doubled in value. Like literally exactly 12 months, Square Enix's share price from that abysmal 2024 has gone up 114%. Doubled, doubled. That is, but I'll leave it there, guys. It's going to be super interesting to see, in 2 days, if something 9 related. It's just going to be interesting to see what the next big titles are from Square Enix, because this will officially be Takashi Kiryu territory. This is going to be the first sample and display to us of what is this guy, who is a very, for all the reasons that I just mentioned, controversial and difficult to pin down what he's going to bring to the company for us actual gamers who want to experience the product. Keep your eyes open, guys. And I made the title and the thumbnail of this video, could 9 Remake be AI? Because I don't know, there's something in my Peasant spidey senses that just be a tingling on this one. Whatever big new title we get, watch out for AI elements and components, because while I think it's exceptionally possible they keep this to the indie and the small and the mobile titles, mid-range games are dead. We're gonna, no matter what, see it show up in the games, whether it'll be for the absolute worst, and Final Fantasy goes viral in the gaming world as being one of the first massive, most beloved series to essentially sell its soul to the devil. I hope that's not the reputation and that's not the timeline we're about to enter into. I feel like it's possible. On Inverse, we're about to hit a real upshot, like Golden Era 2.0. Kiryu, no, I got you wrong, man. You actually do love video games. You had your finger on the pulse. You had an amazing, immaculate strategy. You were just sitting on your hands for the last year or two, getting the company structured, putting the pieces of the puzzle in place, getting the funds on board, and then we're just going to see this massive, succulent wave of incredible content. Who fucking knows? Hopefully you found this video interesting, and that's all from Detective Pez. Bye.